Now that's an eastern towhee.
Oh, yeah. Yep. That one I recognize. Welcome to the Roving Nature Podcast, where we'll explore all things nature and conservation. I'm your host, Matt Bryant, and I invite you to join me as we hear from guests who are passionate about nature and who have made it a significant part of their work, creativity, or personal lives. And I encourage you to learn along with me as we celebrate our deep bond and relationship to our natural world.
Oh, this beautiful day. Beautiful day outside.
Today's episode of the Roving Nature Podcast has really gone to the birds. I had a chance to catch up with Piedmont Bird Club President Jim Gant, as I wanted to learn more about the club and hear his experience and advice about birding. The Piedmont Bird Club formed in Greensboro, North Carolina in 1938 and includes members representing a wide range of experience, from renowned ornithologists to casual backyard or beginning birders, who all share an enthusiasm for birding and nature and who are committed to conservation throughout the Piedmont region and beyond. Members of the club meet up for local, regional, and international field trips, attend monthly meetings to learn about various topics related to birds, nature, and conservation, share knowledge with each other and those in the community who want to learn about birds and birding, and participate in conservation and citizen science activities. I met with Jim on a lovely, somewhat rainy morning at the Haw River State Park, just north of Greensboro. Thank you, Jim, for joining me this morning.
Sure.
Appreciate you being here and taking time to speak with me on the podcast. So let's jump in. If you could give us sort of a short bio and how you got into birding.
I grew up in southern New Jersey originally, and throughout my life I had a very good appreciation for nature and animals and so forth. Over time, we had bird feeders up, and it was always fun to see what came to the bird feeders. And so from that point on, I think I got the initial interest of it would be fun to do. Got through high school and college, and I went into my military career, so there wasn't necessarily a lot of time for birding per se, and I have a 30-year active duty Army career. But I did get a chance to see some neat birds in different places. Humorously, one of the early times is my first assignment. It was in Germany, and my unit, as a lot of units did a lot of maneuvering on the German countryside in areas that they would allow us to go into. And so we got into a position one day, bit of a hill to the side of us, and it rose up a little bit in altitude, lots of trees around. And about 3 in the morning, we have a few folks on guard duty, a few folks sleeping. A cuckoo started, and it cuckooed for at least an hour and a half. I later learned that there's actually about 6 or 7 species of cuckoos in Germany, which is why we have cuckoo clocks. Later on, one of my later assignments, my wife and I were stationed in Hawaii, and you get to see a lot of things there. Some are native, some are not. And one of the neatest things is we had a bird feeder out back, and Java sparrows are not native to Hawaii. To my knowledge, they're not necessarily invasively hurting the environment per se, other than they're multiplying. There's thousands of them. Usually they were pets that got loose or somebody turned them loose, but they are pretty little birds. And so they would empty my feeder in about a day. And we had a telephone line out back, and you would see maybe 40 of them up there and about 6 or 8 on the feeder at a time. And it was almost like a pecking order. One would leave, one would come. One would leave, one would come, and they just go up and down the line all day long. But if you get out onto the other islands, you get a chance to see some other birds. One of the native birds is a honey creeper called the iiwi in Hawaiian. It's a bright red bird with a curved bill. They're beautiful. So things like that kind of kept my interest. Later years, we were in Northern Virginia, where we had lived for about 20 years ultimately. And I just wanted to get out to do this, see birds more, get into it. There was an Audubon club about 12 plus miles from us, but you have to know the geography of the DC area. When you're in the southern part of crossing the Occoquan, getting up towards Washington, DC and the Beltway, it really gets tiring to want to go up there on a weekend when you deal with the traffic all week. So occasionally they had trips down in our area, and so I went on a few of them. Plus, it took me a while into our time there to find it, but about 5 miles from where we lived, there was the Occoquan Bay National Wildlife Refuge. It's a great place to bird, walk, just relax. And in my later times there in Northern Virginia, I actually worked at a wild bird center store. I think the franchise is sold out and changed names now, but kind of like the Wild Birds Unlimited, but a different franchise. And I met a lot of great people there. The owners were avid birders, so I really got into it there. Went out to the refuge several times to watch bird banding, which was always a lot of fun to see. And so that really kind of gets you pulled in, if you will. It's just neat to see the various birds and why they bird band, to track, to see the health of populations and migration and so forth. So all of that said, that's what really got me going. When we moved here in 2019, my wife's originally from Winston-Salem, so we needed to get her closer to her folks. We learned about the Piedmont Bird Club, and so I decided to check it out. And the great people there, especially the experienced ones that have tremendous amounts of knowledge, were just so gracious in sharing their knowledge and helping you understand, what you're seeing, where you would look for them, and just learning about the process of birding. I was hooked. And so we've been a member, ever since. I think we joined early 2020. The club had to, obviously, with everything else, kind of stand down on its activities during the pandemic. Although towards the end, maybe a little bit earlier than some, as we're out here in the open. So you're not in a confined environment. So we started doing some local trips. We kept the numbers low, restricted it to not more than, say, about 10 or 12 people. Everybody had to keep a distance. If you felt like you needed to wear a mask, wear a mask. You're not necessarily going to be contagious to anybody, and everybody kept their distance, and it worked out well. But at least it got us back, and it got us out of the house, and it got back to nature. And I think that's really my full appreciation to birding, is it gets you out of the environment of getting away from technology. Last year, our club, for the first time in a few years, went back out to the Outer Banks area. While we were out there, we stopped at Pocosin Lakes National Wildlife Refuge. A couple of our members saw black bears. They're common out there. You want to stay away from them. There's signs everywhere that tell you, don't try to get close to them or anything. But the other thing that I saw when I was looking for an area to photograph and see some birds is I stumbled across 3 endangered red wolves. I knew that they were at Alligator River. I just did not know they were at Pocosin. You never know what you're going to see. And so it's not just always birding, but getting you out there to see and to hear the birds. I think it's a fantastic thing to do. It's healthy. Scientific studies have said, even if you're just sitting in your yard listening to birds and listening to the birds sing, has great health benefits.
I spent time with Jim during our interview walking around the trails in Haw River State Park to discover what birds might be around for us to see and hear. The tree canopy that day was filled with a constant loud cacophony of cicadas, which made birding a bit more challenging.
When you're out with a group or you're with someone else and you're both looking through binos or cameras or whatever, is there any kind of communication, sort of shorthand for instead of, no, the other limb, no, the other tree?
That's a key thing, learning on identifying where something is without pointing, because that can distract birds, especially when they're not that far away.
Jim is also an avid bird photographer, so he had his camera at the ready during our walk. You can see some of the pics he captured that morning during our hike on the webpage for this podcast episode on the Roving Nature website.
So to talk about the Piedmont Bird Club, which you are currently the president of, maybe some context about how it came into being, how you would describe it, especially within the context of where we are?
The club is going to be 88 years old in February. We came together doing a multitude of things to take care of the environment for the birds as well as birding. And that's part of our mission that we've maintained across the years. In addition to just birding, we do reach out and do a lot of work with local agencies, garden clubs, the city of Greensboro, some Guilford County agencies to look after the environment. A number of our members, especially some of our senior ones, were very active to try to set aside land so not everything gets developed. So you would have natural spaces like this.
So like maybe Piedmont Land Conservancy, for
That's
example.
exactly what it was, yeah. And so at some point that kind of dissolved. Some of our members were very active in that, not only in the Greensboro area, but I know one of our members that recently passed away, Dennis Burnett. Part of that, still I think part of Guilford County, but it's down in Climax. There's an area down there called the Company Mill Preserve. It's adjunct to the Higginstone Park down there. And he and some other members were involved in getting that set aside. They also had money put in. When you first get there, the opening area is very good, stone gravel pathways. They have a nice pier there you can see things from. And they've also put boardwalks across a number of the wetlands further in on the trail, which is tremendous. Our members have been involved in a number of things like that. Currently, we have a conservation committee that does trail cleanups, stream cleanups. We monitor eastern bluebird houses. I think we have about 15 at Price Park. I want to say there's 30 to 40 out at Country Park. And our committee chairman, Melanie Stadler, was monitoring, I think, about 8 to 10 that were out at the Guilford County Tech Park. She was doing some monitoring on bluebirds back there. She's doing PhD research, bluebird research. So that's kind of what our conservation committee does. Our education committee, headed up by Stella Ware, is a fantastic committee, and Stella does a great job. We go out to areas, for instance, recently out at Country Park, they had Trails Day, National Trails Day. We as other vendors will provide displays. We talk about birds, we talk about the environment, show the little ones' nests. If we have, some eggs that didn't hatch, we have displays where we show that, as well as photos of the birds and things. And usually if we have the opportunity in those areas, we may in fact take little short bird walks for 10 minutes or so, just to kind of show people that you don't have to go far. They're right here. They're in your backyard. They're everywhere. So in recent years, schools have reached out, different committees have reached out, and in fact, we've had a couple of nursing agencies that have reached out to us to come to some of their annual seminars to provide information and talk about, getting out into birding and nature and that type of thing. And so we've been participating in that. So our demand in that area has really increased, and we have a lot of great members that volunteer their time to do that. That's probably one of our most active committees, the education committee. Social committee puts together social things for us. We start off the year in September for our meetings, if you will, with a picnic, and then from October through April we'll be in regular buildings. Usually we meet at the Kathleen Clay Edwards Family Branch Library once a month, every third Thursday. And then in May we'll have another social event, usually a picnic or something outside, and that'll wrap up our year for us at that point. Our activities usually run from to the end of August until early June.
So this is sort of a quiet period.
It was a quiet period, but this was our heavy planning time. And so what we do is our committees start meeting late June through July and August, and we set aside what we're going to do. We have a programs committee that puts together the speakers for each of the meetings that we're going to have. We also work closely with the T. Gilbert Pearson Audubon Society. They're kind of a parallel group. Obviously, they have a national relationship. We're an independent club, but we do a lot of things very similarly. We have similar objectives. We have our own constitution, but we work closely together. I do also, besides being the president, I am the chairman of the field trip committee, so I schedule the field trips that we're going to do for the year. Most are within about an hour's driving distance of Greensboro, and we're going to do another one this year, 3.5 days out at the Outer Banks. We also do, as we've done for several years, we go up to an area in Virginia that's classified as Warbler Road. It's northeast of Roanoke. It's one of the major flyways for the migration period. We also in April have for years, and we're going to do it again this year, do about a 3.5 day trip down to the Murrells Inlet area for the Huntington Beach State Park. That's also a great trip to see birds that you have to go to the coast for at different times to see, because there's tons of birds that stay around wetlands areas and so forth that are migrating. Ann Presnell, one of our members, has done a great job with that for a number of years. We do a program called mini grants, and the mini grants, we will open it up to schools, scouts, churches, just everybody, because we've had some folks from UNCG, we've had churches, we've had daycares, and we give them a criteria of what we will grant the money for, up to $500. And in some cases we've elected to go a little bit higher because the project was worthy of it. But for the most part, it's $500. And we give them an application that they have to fill out and provide significant detail. Not just, I want to put up some bluebird boxes. I want to put up 6 boxes and here's the locations that I want to put them at. Of course, things like that, when we hear that, we want to make sure that they're not stacking them within 10 feet of one another, because that's not going to work. So you have to make sure that they're doing it correctly. And that's part of the engagement that our chairman for that committee does, is that he kind of works with them to make sure that the application is right. But once we have it, we'll pull a group of folks together, we'll analyze them, and we'll vote on them. Usually we do up to 5 per year. It's very worthy to do that. And that also helps in the education process for the young ones to get to know about birds and the environment and how to take care of them and how to appreciate what we can do for them, as well as just go out and watch them.
I asked Jim to talk about what kinds of birds one might encounter depending on where you are located in the state of North Carolina.
Each region of North Carolina, you got the coast, we're in the Piedmont area. Of course, in the southeast, you've got the sandhills, and of course the mountains has theirs out there. So each region will have a number of bird species that are common everywhere. But they're also going to have species that are peculiar to their areas because of the type of terrain that's there and the type of environments that are there. An example, down in the sandhills, everywhere you go, it's pine trees. So you're going to find a lot of nuthatches down there. You're also, especially in an area called Weymouth Woods Sandhills Nature Preserve, which is run by the National Park Service, it's a haven for the endangered red cockaded woodpecker. They specifically like the longleaf pines for nesting trees and feeding trees. And so that region of North Carolina is big for that. Even on military installations at Fayetteville, when I was stationed there years ago, the red cockaded woodpecker was there. There were areas that sometimes we couldn't go into because there were just too many nesting or feeding trees, and they just didn't want those trees, potentially damaged or harmed in any way. They also have a little sparrow called the Bachman sparrow. It's found somewhat commonly there, although quite frankly, even though he's there, he's rarely seen. They're just elusive, but if you can see one while you're there, it's a good day. The mountains will have, especially along the Blue Ridge Parkway, warblers and such. We may see them coming through in the migration, whether in the spring or in the fall, but they're not going to stay here. Some will, but some will move on to either north or western and or northwestern breeding grounds, and that's where they stay. So if you get a chance to go up to areas like Blowing Rock, Boone, and so forth, there's areas up there like Trout Lake, Bass Lake, part of the Moses Cone Park up there along the parkway. You'll find warblers up there like the hooded warbler, and every once in a while you get rare sightings. A few years back, I want to say it was in 2022, Rosetta spoonbills were showing up everywhere. As the Canada's taken off. They were seen as far north as Wisconsin. Unheard of, but they were there. There's a nice area. If you go off Old Battleground Road, there's 2 trails that parallel Horsepen Creek. One is the Greenway Trail, and the opposite side is the Palmetto Trail. And a short ways in on the Palmetto Trail, there is a man-made trail that cuts out to the wetlands area that you can see the water and the mudflats. So when you looked out onto the mudflats, that's where the Rosetta spoonbills were. There were up to 3 at one time. Sometimes the birds will show up here because they got diverted because of some bad storms along the coast. So they got pushed inland. At the Guilford County Farm, a Say's phoebe showed up. The Say's phoebe is normally not seen east of the Rocky Mountains. So it's anyone's guess as to why it showed up here. Spent several months out there. We had hundreds of people that came from everywhere to see it. Disappeared for a few months, came back for a few months, and then eventually moved on to wherever it moved on to. You know, we're not that far, for instance, at Dorothea Dix Park over in our Raleigh-Durham area. It's been there before, and it's showed up kind of the same time for 2 or 3 years. It's a painted bunting. Normally the painted buntings, you get isolated spottings right along the coast, Wilmington, Nags Head, and so forth. Usually they're not much seen north of South Carolina and the southeast region of the United States. This one's been hanging out there. He's been having fun in Dorothea Dix Park. There's hundreds of people that have been there with photographs of him. So it's a beautiful bird to see. He's picturesque. He'll get up on an open branch and sing for you. And so you don't have to go far. People will run all over the state to go see some of these rare species that pop in from time to time.
Considering how long the Piedmont Bird Club has been around, I'm curious as to how developments in technology over the years have influenced or affected birdwatching. How has technology changed or not changed how birding is done?
Part of the mission, in addition to protecting the environment for birds, is also collecting data on the birds seen within our area, and we track that over time. One of the ways that we do that, we have a bird count committee, and Elizabeth Link has done a fantastic job with that over the years. We do 2 bird counts per year. We do a Christmas bird count, which is part of the National Audubon sanctioned bird count. We also do a spring bird count as well, usually in the end of April, early May time period. This year I think it's right at early May. That one's during the migration period. The Christmas is, you're going to basically see what's there for the winter. Migration normally ends by the end of October. So what you have at Christmas time are the birds you're going to see normally for the winter. We do a very comprehensive tally. There's a special process. We account for how many people were in the party that observed the birds, how many did you see, what species did you see. For instance, I'm with a group that normally travels to 4 different locations, so you have to keep track of your time and your distance between the 2 and so forth. We get a snapshot every year, and then at least 50 or so volunteers that go out to multiple sites all over and do these counts. Some are along the lakes. The group that I work with goes to Hamilton Lakes. We actually go to Green Hill Cemetery, which is also a decent birding spot, by the way. We also stop at a small whistle-stop park called Mitchell Park. Each one has its own attributes. It's a lot of fun to do. We do keep those records. Nowadays, one of the pieces of technology is things that the Cornell Lab of Ornithology has developed over time. First one that a lot of folks are familiar with is Merlin. Merlin is a very good comprehensive app. It's a free app that you download to your cell phone. It can help you identify birds. It can help provide you information on the bird species, tell you the calls that they make. If you have a photo of a bird but you're not sure what it is, if you can download it to your phone, the app will look at the photo and give you recommendations on what the bird may be. A lot depends on the quality of the photo. And it'll also record sounds. Depending on the day and how many birds are singing at any given time, it's anywhere from about 85% to maybe a low 90+% success rate. That's just my assessment. If you get a lot of birds singing at one time, it seems to me that whether it's pitch or frequency, tones, whatever, it can get confused. And so you get used to knowing, and you say, well, I know I heard this, but it didn't show up, but then it said this was here, and there's no reason for that one to be here. So you have to kind of sort through that. You can't just take it as an absolute, and you learn that with experience. But that's part of the technology that has evolved that helps people, especially the beginning birders, to understand what they're seeing, what they're hearing, and getting into it. The other aspect that they've put out that's also helpful, we use these to help collect that data when we do the bird counts, is called eBird. eBird is another application that the Cornell Lab of Ornithology puts out, and essentially it's an electronic checklist. So rather than walking around with a clipboard in the rain trying to keep track of this bird or that bird and so forth, which we had to do years ago, you can do it on your phone. It'll help you with your GPS. Before you had to record everything, I'm at Hamilton Lakes and I think I'm going this far and so forth. Now it's using GPS. It's telling you exactly how far you were. For instance, it told me where I was when I walked the trail at the other side of the Hall River State Park. So that has helped a lot. And so you can use your checklists for every location that you were at for the bird count. So now you can go back and prepare your master spreadsheet on, okay, here's everything I saw. Now, Cornell has also done a very good thing in that you don't have to necessarily go back in each one of your your own and develop your own spreadsheet, you can develop a spreadsheet that'll allow you to prepare what's called a trip report. You can go into your checklist and it'll specify, I want to prepare a trip report for this day, and it'll pop up all of the checklists that you did on that day, and then you can share it. It's not going to specify that you were at 4 different locations, but it's going to give you all the birds and the numbers of birds that you saw. We still do a few things, manually from the perspective that, we keep our records in a records archive. UNCG has graciously given us space in their area, and so we keep track of things over there. In the past, we did yearbooks, and we still do yearbooks. Basically, it was the persons who did it was kind of like pulling together a scrapbook for the year, an article here in the paper, a picture here, and that type of thing, and they're all over there. But nowadays, with technology, each of the committees can provide descriptions to what we're going to do, information on the programs. We have a yearbook committee that pulls that together and puts out a very high quality product. We do print off some hard copies, and we'll put some over in the historical records. We do have some folks that, especially some of our more senior folks, they're not necessarily into the big on the technology. They're used to seeing the yearbook hard copy, so we'll get it out to them. But everybody else predominantly will get an electronic version. And so each one will also have a person that we've dedicated the yearbook to. Usually that's a person that's done a lot for the club, served within the club as an officer, has done a lot of great work. So we have a bit of a narrative on that, and a lot of photos and information about the committees, what we do.
I asked Jim if he has any advice for people who are brand new to birding and are wondering where to begin or how to enter the birding community. Maybe they've played around with the Merlin app, but are looking for guidance from an actual birder on how to begin this enjoyable and rewarding activity.
First off, if you're wondering, how to get started, and one of the things that we talk to folks about in various displays is that you don't have to go far. Usually your backyard is not a bad place to start. See, listen, hear, and you can use your Merlin to help you out. If you've done that and you kind of say, well, what's my next step? I would offer to you, you do not have to be a member to join us on any of our trips. We're within an hour's drive of Greensboro for the vast majority of our trips. Feel free to come join us. If you just happen to see it on the website, by all means, consider. If you have questions, each trip in the description will see a trip coordinator designated along with the contact information. Contact the trip coordinator. They'll answer your questions for you. What they'll find is we'll meet, we'll say hi, introduce each other, and we'll see if anybody's brand new to birding. Sometimes if people say, I'd like to come, but I don't have a pair of binos, we'll find an extra pair of binos for them. We'll make arrangements for those kinds of things. What they'll learn along the way is that, as it really got to me when I first joined, the folks with the expertise are very willing, not overbearingly, to share that information to help them along and to get a better appreciation for it. Sometimes you just never know what you're going to see that's really going to be exciting. We had a group from Outdoor Afro, and they came and joined us up there. We took them out, and I think the kids had a great time seeing birds. And while we were out there, we knew that this rare sighting had been happening every once in a while. It's called a swallowtail kite. We see them, but they're not here all the time. And it's a great rare sighting when you get a chance to see. And we happened to have them in an open area when it was circling around the fields out in front of us. And so they saw us get excited. This is great. This is a rare bird. This is really fantastic. And so, they consequently got excited too. And so, that's one of the things hopefully they took back with them, maybe remember about it. So, you never know what you're going to see. A lot of times you get out on these things and all of a sudden an osprey pops out or an eagle pops out. And for the young birder that hasn't seen anything like that, it's like, wow, sometimes, the thing that made it for them. Certainly welcome to come along. It doesn't cost you anything. That's a great way to learn from people that have been doing it for a number of years.
Do you have any tips or tricks for beginning birders? If they're like, how do you find them?
One of the things that they can use to kind of get used to it is if you use the Merlin app, say you're walking around your yard or your neighborhood, use the Merlin app. And one of the ways that can be useful is not just, okay, it says you just heard a blue jay. Okay. When you tap on the piece that shows you it was a blue jay, you can tap on that and it gives you information on blue jays. If you scroll down, it's going to tell you the various calls that the blue jay makes. And so you don't have to play it loud, just enough for you to hear it. And you can play them and say, ah, yeah, that's the one I heard. And so you start now associating that bird with that call. It's not something that's going to come instantaneously. It's something that has to come with practice and over time. You get used to it, but it takes practice. And quite frankly, a lot of us, when we don't hear the warblers over the winter months, as they start coming back, it's like, I should know that. So now we're going back to Merlin. Oh yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, that's right. So that can happen. If you really want to get into it and learn about it, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, they have a number of very, very good classes that you can take online. And some of them are free, some of them have a little bit of a cost, and they're not that expensive. The good part about it is, if you purchase one, you can take it time and time again. It's not like you have to keep buying it. It helps to go back because they have everything. How to identify birds, how you specify, okay, if this is a sparrow and this is a something else, what's the difference? Beak size, thickness, color. One of the early things that we try to help people get visualization in their mind is size of a bird. And it's one of the delineators to see what it is. Is it the size of a sparrow? Is it the size of a robin? Is it the size of a cardinal? Is it the size of a goose or a crow? So we try to provide, if you envision even a silhouette of, say, a sparrow, a robin, a crow, and a goose, it doesn't have to be exactly that size. It can be smaller, it can be larger. If you look at the how to do it step by step on Merlin, that's one of the things it's going to ask you about what size was it. So those are the kinds of things that we try to help people identify to know what they're seeing and what they're not seeing. I'm a practical application type of person. I mean, I can take the classes, don't get me wrong, and I do, but just getting out, seeing and hearing them over time, repetition is kind of one of the better ways for me.
Birding is a lifelong endeavor, and even the most seasoned birders continue to learn.
That's the other thing that you learn as you go along is, if you're in the same close proximity, but even if the bird maybe has moved a little bit, it's probably the same bird. So you don't want to count every call that you hear because birds move. So.
I was wondering if you could mention any of your favorite birds and any that you are on the lookout for that maybe you haven't seen or that you're hoping to see again.
Every time that you see a new bird that you haven't seen in the birding community, it's classified as a lifer. And so, there's a number of bird species out there that just here in this area that I can honestly say I haven't seen. There's a number of sparrows that I haven't seen all of them. You gradually find one here and there and that type of thing over time. I enjoy seeing and hearing the warblers as they come through. They're really beautiful birds. The songs are awesome to listen to. I also like to see the bald eagles and the ospreys. There's another place, it's about an hour's drive from Greensboro. It's down just north of Pittsboro. It's called the Old Bynum Bridge. It's a historical marker now. The old bridge was an old two-lane bridge, and it was the primary route when it was built back in the 20s from Pittsboro to the Capitol. Now the bridge has been cordoned off. It's only a pedestrian-only bridge, and the area right next to it years and years ago was some type of a mill. I'm not exactly certain what type. All the buildings are gone except for one. The old powerhouse building is there, but I don't think there's anything in it. But you can see the sluiceway that they cut out for water to come by to provide power to the mill. That area down below is also a meadow now. So you're on the Hall River, you've got trees along the river, you've got a meadow. When you walk out onto the bridge, unlike here, when we're walking on the trails and we're looking up into the canopy, you get what they call warbler's neck because you're always looking up. There, when you're walking out onto the bridge, you're up into the canopy. And so now you have to force yourself to look down because sometimes the bird's below you, not above you. It's a great area to see a variety of birds down there. The protonotary warblers are a beautiful yellow bird. They've been nesting down there for the last few years. There's also a number of birds that you'll see on migration down there. But it's also not uncommon on any given day to see ospreys and bald eagles fishing up and down the Hall River going back and forth. So it's one of those few places that you get a lot of variety in one spot like that. The warblers I really enjoy. I haven't begun to see them all. It's a lot of fun to get out there and try to find them during migration. I don't know if I've had any one specific one that I'm on the hunt for. I know a lot of people will set out every year and say, okay, here's the 6 birds I got to find this year. I have to be honest, I haven't done that yet. Hopefully, maybe this year I'll start that. We do have a lot of people that do that, and that's one of the ways you build your lifer repertoire, if you will, and how many birds. When you look at your account on eBird, it'll tell you how many lifer birds you have. I think I'm over 200 and some species. There's people far, far more numbers than I have.
As Jim mentioned earlier in the episode, conservation and nature organizations like the Piedmont Bird Club are often actively involved in conservation efforts in their community aimed at helping to maintain the presence and well-being of birds, especially in situations where wildlife and their habitats are threatened by human activity.
We have sent a letter, and I think the T. Gilbert Pearson Audubon has, and a number of other groups have. The Lindley Elementary School is shutting down. For years in the fall, usually in September, one of the migrating bird species at that time were chimney swifts. Chimney swifts will form these very large flocks and move together. The chimney swift is not designed to sit up on a branch and perch. It tries to get into a cavity and it holds on to the sides and such. And so they use chimneys very often. And so the chimney at Lindley Elementary School is one of the primary areas that they were using. And so we don't know exactly when the school is going to go away, but it's in the process that they've shut it down and it's going to get torn down. We were looking to see if they would consider putting up a chimney swift tower. Now, the towers, just like chimneys, are not an absolute scenario. But if they were to do it, and if we build the right one, we stand a chance because they've been to that area, they are coming to that general area, that they may use it. But it's not an absolute thing. You can have 4 schools within maybe a quarter of a mile, half a mile radius, and they go to one, but they don't go to the others. I can't tell you why they go to that one and not the others, but so it's a bit hit and miss. It's not absolute. But in that regard, since they are coming to Lindley, we stand a decent chance. We think the builder has the idea, and what we're trying to do is get permission to have one built on the campus area. But if we could put an artificial chimney up that's built well, it's in that area, then we think that we stand a good chance that they may come back and use it. And that's an integral part because it provides places for them to roost while they're there. What they may come in and do is, if they like the area and they take up the roost, they'll go out in the mornings, they feed, they fly all day long. They don't go perching anywhere. They fly all day long, eat bugs, come back, and they'll spend some time there, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then they move on. One of the things that's really been impacting bird populations across the board is not only taking out their nesting sites, but taking out sites that they would use on migrations for feeding and cover and so forth. Of course, once they migrate, it's another issue once they get down in Central and South America with loss of habitat down there. One of the things that we try to stay on top of with the various committees at Greensboro Council, City Council, and the Guilford County Commissioners is, for instance, one of the successful things we were a part of, we weren't necessarily the only one who did it, but we were a part of to convince the city of Greensboro to plant in their common areas native plants. And the reason for that is the invasives that are here are pretty, but they don't really add to the environment other than they're pretty. Some do, not many. So if you're doing natives, you're providing the opportunity for pollinators, butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds, and other potential food sources. They put out something like your American beautyberry, which is native to North Carolina. In the fall, it produces a lot of these little purple berries. The birds love it. There's all kinds of benefits to having things like that. Different types of trees that produce the nuts. Not just squirrels eat the nuts, birds eat the nuts as well. That's part of our concern is, you lose the habitat, then you start losing the number of species. Because of habitat loss, the chimney swift, as an example, is on the verge of being considered somewhat endangered. It's really on a tipping point, if you will. Once you get numbers to a certain point, you're in kind of I won't say a complete death spiral, but you're into a very downward trend it's hard to break out of. And so, over time, you just may lose the species. And sometimes that's happened. We try to work as best we can to keep promoting that, and with our displays, our talks, and various things that we do in conjunction with other agencies and groups, we try to keep promoting that to protect the birds and help them to flourish. And not just that, but there's a lot of benefit to having the native plants for all the other pollinators as well. People keep forgetting that if you don't have bees, you're not going to have crops, you're not going to have strawberries, you're not going to have corn. It's all connected. And one of the things that you're finding around is that whether it's climate change and the bees are getting some kind of a fungus and they're losing colonies of bees, they're having a rough time right now maintaining the numbers that they need for just general pollination for food sources and other key elements.
I'd like to give a big thanks to Jim for being on this episode of Roving Nature and for sharing his passion and knowledge about birding, and to tell us all about the Piedmont Bird Club. You can find the Bird Club's website at piedmontbirdclub.org. That's a wrap for our show today. I appreciate you giving the Roving Nature podcast a listen, and I hope you'll share it with others who might be interested. All episodes are available on www.rovingnature.net, where you'll also find a blog, social media links, and nature-related news and resources. Stay tuned for more episodes to come, and in the meantime, I encourage you all to get out in nature when and where you can, even if it's only a few minutes a day and just outside your door. Learn about and get involved with your local nature and conservation organizations and help support local and national legislation that will help protect our precious natural resources. I'd like to give a huge shout out to local singer-songwriter Abigail Dowd for letting me use her lovely song Beautiful Day as the theme music on today's show. You'll find links to Abigail's artist and album websites and her Instagram on this episode page and on the Roving Nature website.
They want every day to be a beautiful day. Beautiful day outside.